Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex talking to the biggest stars and my favourite people, and a man who always delivers is Paul Zerdin. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you? I like that. The biggest stars and Paul Zerdin.
No, you are one, and I'll tell you why. You knock it out of the park, you're still filling theatres, you do panto every year and everybody loves you. You're a guaranteed act. There aren't many of those left, are there?
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. I just try my best, you know.
Is it fun being you? I mean, here we are sat here in Mansfield on a day when you've got a packed house. Tomorrow you're in St Helens. There's a lot of travel involved. Is that hard work?
Yeah, it is actually. I mean, I'm more of a professional driver than I am a professional entertainer these days, and it seems to take longer to get everywhere. And I just think there's more cars on the roads, and even though they're widening the roads everywhere, it seems to just slow everything up. If I could take the train everywhere, I would. But I've got a few props. I'm not the sort of busiest, proppiest show. But however, I've got quite a lot of stuff, and each time I do a tour, I try and make it a bit sort of bigger and better than the last one, and so you end up filling the car up, and I have to take the car everywhere. So yes, it's absolutely exhausting traveling, but that's just the way it is. Once you're on stage and you've got a lovely crowd, then you kind of forget about that.
And it is the life you chose. I mean, you chose to be in front of audiences, and the trouble with that is you've got to go to them. They're not going to come to you.
Yeah, they don't come to you. I don't like that. I live in London and southwest London, and maybe I should just give out my address and say, come to me and I'll do a show in my front room. That's the way it is, yeah. And but I mean, some nights or sometimes I'm away out of the country in a different country, so that involves more travelling. So this is actually, this is easy, just up the M1 a bit.
Every year I go to Vegas to do my programme there, and I think of you every single year and wonder why you haven't got your own showroom, because it was born to be in Vegas. Is that something that's tempted you?
I've actually worked there I've done a couple of weekends there in variety shows. There's a kettle heating up in the background now.
It's nice of him. He's totally disregarded the fact we're doing an interview. It doesn't matter.
Yes, never mind. We're pros. We can work through this. Yes, I've been to Vegas a few times and performed there, and been on a bill with various acts from Vegas, and they're from Cirque du Soleil and all the shows there. I have a friend of mine who's a producer, and he keeps on saying, one day I'm going to get you the Paul Zerdin showroom there, and you'll have a contract there for 10 years or whatever. And I like the idea of it, but then I think actually 10 years in Las Vegas, I don't know if I could cope with that, to be honest. I love the variety and the fact that I get to travel all over the place. And I can always, I can always leave and go somewhere else. I went to Vegas recently, actually, and I just went to see the new Michael Jackson show, the Cirque du Soleil show, and that blew me away. And I just thought, wow, they really know how to do it in Vegas. And I always come back very sort of re-enthused about show business when I come back from Vegas. Maybe one day, who knows?
And it's a place to be inspired. I mean, you go and see Terry Fator, he's still able to do it 8 times a week and still managing to fill audiences on a 10-year contract. I guess you don't want to be there for 10 years, but you could do it for 6 months.
I'd maybe give it a go for 6 months. Maybe twist my arm.
And those buffets, I mean, imagine the fun you could have eating.
I know. Well, it's the same as the cruise ships, I've worked on and off cruise ships, and particularly American cruise ships, and these ships are massive, and so are the passengers. And as they say, they come on as passengers, they go off as cargo, because all there is to do is just eat everywhere. And Vegas is literally just buffet after buffet. But, it's an amazing place. And it's fantastic to see someone like Terry Fator, who was always a good kind of jobbing act. And then he got a fantastic break on America's Got Talent, and now he has his own show at which used to be called the Danny Gans Theatre, and now it's the Terry Fator Showroom. And I've seen his show a couple of times, and it's just great to see a ventriloquist being in front of an audience at the top of the bill in somewhere like Las Vegas. So I think I used to think, when another ventriloquist came along, even though he's in a different country and we're totally different, you'd go, oh, who's that? Another ventriloquist? Oh, great, that's all we need, more competition. But now actually I think, hang on, it opens it up. And the same goes with Jeff Dunham. He's kind of done it on a global, thanks to YouTube, on a global scale, really. And so I think it makes ventriloquism cooler generally, and I don't feel such a freak now.
And that's the other thing about you. You are very normal. Most magicians and ventriloquists that I speak to are slightly odd and strange. You seem to be the normalist of the pile.
I try and be normal. I spend every night standing on stage talking to myself, or talking to my hand and making it talk back, or making people talk back, whatever it is. But when I come off stage, I don't talk to them. I don't talk to the puppets. They go in the boot of the car, and I don't speak to them until the next night. So I think I am quite normal. I have heard stories of ventriloquists after, there was a story of an American ventriloquist. I don't know who it was, but he was working at the Palladium some years ago, and apparently he did a show. It didn't go very well, and he was overheard in the dressing room shouting at the dummy, saying, "You weren't funny tonight. You really let me down. You better buck your ideas up." And I think if I ever get to that stage, then I'll have to go where the men in white coats are.
I once interviewed a phantom on Broadway who told me he never opens the curtains at home because he wants to stay in the role. You've got to wonder about someone's sanity at that point, haven't you, really?
Yeah, there's a famous story about Laurence Olivier, I think, and Dustin Hoffman on the set of Marathon Man, and Dustin Hoffman has to go off and get all ready because he plays this marathon runner who's involved in this big murder thing, and he kind of has to go and get hot and flustered between each take, and has to look like he's been running for hours, and so he goes off running for half an hour and comes back on, and then they shout action when he's ready, and then I believe he said, "Oh, I can't do it any other way," and Laurence Olivier said something like, "Haven't you ever heard of acting, dear boy?" Anyway, I don't know why I'm comparing myself at puppets to Laurence Olivier and Dustin Hoffman.
Big yourself up, why not?
Yes, but I like to think I'm relatively normal, although I'm working on a sitcom idea at the moment, which I'm just filming a little mini pilot for, and that is it's kind of based on the perception that everyone has. When you think of a ventriloquist, you do think of some weird bloke with a scary looking doll talking to it, in the room, planning the murder somewhere, so I am kind of focusing on the mad side of it, because I think in a way that's kind of what people, they want to know that, or think that you're a bit nuts in a funny way, obviously, not in a weird spooky way. I'm trying to sort of harness that side of it, that aspect in this show idea.
I've seen you twice live. I saw you in Leeds in a theatre last year doing your act, and then I saw you previously in pantomime, and you're amazing at both. And we do have a lot in common. I mean, I've spent much of my life enjoying myself with my hand as well. And we look at your career now, and you've got such warmth on stage. I think that's what comes across more than most other people in your genre that I've seen. You're very likeable, but your characters are as well. I mean, the puppets are immediately funny, aren't they? Was that important to you, that you had a warmth about you? You're cheeky, but you're not kind of smutty and rude, are you?
Well, the show has got adult content in it, which is why it's a 15. However, it's not particularly rude. It's only rude when we're talking about, for example, there's a moment in the show where I'm talking with Sam, who's my kind of kid puppet. He's a kind of grown-up kid. He's kind of about to become a teenager, but he's also very much in the know and not... he's not, fazed by anything, and he's me. He's a stupid Muppety version of me, really. And we're talking about how he's coping with a hangover after going to this big puppet party with all the famous puppets. And obviously, he talks about getting drunk and getting up to naughty things. So there's an adult kind of content to the show, but it's not particularly rude, and I think you can be funny without being rude. There's a bit of colourful language in there, which just kind of punctuates a couple of moments within the show. So it's not over the top. It's not too much. And I think because I'm able to do pantomime at Christmas in front of a family crowd, and I've come from doing family shows for years and clubs and holiday camps and stuff and cruise ships. I think generally you want the bigger audience, the biggest audience possible, and that involves kids to grannies to any age group, really. And I think I have a kid, I have a baby, and I have an old man in the show, and so it's kind of like all walks of life. So everyone can relate to one of the characters at least in the show, and I think that gives it a kind of warm sort of knowing feeling, because everyone knows someone or something that's happened to a similar sort of storyline in the show, if that makes any sense.
No, it does, absolutely does. I'm going to let you go because you're going to be on in just a few minutes. What's going through your head at this point? I mean, is the act so within you now you don't have to think about it?
Well, this is a new show, and so I've been doing this show since the beginning of September, and with my old show, which I'd been touring probably for a bit longer, it's in your head, and if I'm doing a private function, I get booked for doing sort of corporate dues and things like that after, all over the place actually. I turn up and do my old act because it's a different kind of, it's a different thing, different setup. The audience haven't necessarily come to see you. You are just the entertainment for after a show, whereas when you're doing a theatre tour, the audience, I think, predominantly know who you are or what you do and have come to see your new show. Otherwise, you get stale, and I think when you can see an act, a performer that's been doing his act for too long, because they're just, I don't know, there's something in the eyes which have kind of gone, and you can just see them doing it autopilot. I kind of know this show now. It's always a bit different because of the audience reaction every night, but you know, at the moment I am kind of roughly thinking I know what's coming when I get out there. But sometimes there has been a couple of moments on the tour where I've got out there and I thought, I've absolutely no idea what's coming next. But because I've got the puppet in my hand, whichever character it is, and they've all got different characteristics. For example, the old man character, he says his catchphrase is "Good God, yes" all the time. He says "Good God, yes," and sometimes that can be just a filler, because I'll be thinking, I don't remember the next joke, what the next bit is, but I'm using his characteristics, his character traits to kind of get away with it. So if you hear "Good God, yes" a lot during the show, you'll know I don't know what's coming next. But generally I kind of, you know, I've got something I can fall back into if I do forget something. But I think that's why all performers love live work.
I'm a massive fan of yours. Thank you for your time. Paul Zerdin is on the road now through until the end of October. You got a DVD out as well. What's your website so people can find out the dates?
That is most kind of you. It is paulzerdin.com.
Brilliant. And we've also learned, don't hang your clothes on the frames. That's what's plastered all over this theatre. You mustn't hang your clothes on the frames. So that's very nice of them to tell us that.
Isn't it? And talking of that, I've got to go and iron my shirt.
Yeah, you think you better go and do your show. Paul Zerdin's on tour. You can find out more. Google Paul Zerdin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.